Delighted to welcome back Scott, who's going to introduce our kind of discussions for the afternoon. As Joe and others have mentioned, the MDIC Case for Quality Steering Committee did a strategic planning session earlier this year and discussed what we could do next in this space. And we have 4 work streams to talk about here today. Scott's going to introduce a little bit about kind of how we got here, and then we're going to have leaders from our steering committee comment on each of those 4 work streams, and then we put you to work, because that's what you do after lunch, is you put people to work. So we look forward to continuing a really robust discussion. So Scott, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks again. The purpose of what we're trying to do here, first of all, is as we dive into a little bit of the details, is give you the background and understanding of how these 4 items came up with. And so you understand there was some rigor, some diligence put behind the thought process to get to this point. And fortunately, Grant Thornton was along for the ride through this process. So I want to make sure you guys understand and are comfortable how this came about. Otherwise, you can complain to Joe, but otherwise. So back in February, the MDIC received proposals from several organizations to help assist with this 2020 strategic plan development. Grant Thornton was fortunate enough for us to be selected to help lead this and facilitate this effort. And really the way we started with this was engaging the steering committee members. So a survey went out to the steering committee to receive input, feedback, and make sure we weren't just coming from topics we thought would be valuable. We really wanted to canvass that steering committee to understand what topics would be relevant to be in consideration for this go-ahead strategic discussion. Then in April, we went ahead and compiled those and came up with really 3 key themes that would be a part of a facilitated conversation. So you see we were moving pretty rapidly to make sure that we got through this. So as I slide over into, all right, back into April, on the 12th, there was an all-day strategic planning session with the steering committee members. I think Dr. Shuren was there, others were there to help really drive this through. And in essence, the 3 topics that were highlighted to focus on were industry cross collaboration, talent, and people and culture. So those are the 3 overarching thematic topics that the steering committee then dove into. Okay. From that, working groups were created, in essence, that teams were put out to go ahead and dive into those to identify goals for the particular topic or theme that they were working on. And so 2 to 3 themes came out. So we had, again, back to about 10 total goals that were identified to be evaluated and debated amongst the steering committee members. Then the steering committee voted, and actually there's I know you next break or when you walk back to get food or drink, there's actually a poster board back there that really lays out all the items that were part of the conversation and lays out the voting, and you understand kind of where things were out there. So that's just good for your viewing as you walk back there. From those 10 initial goals, 4 were selected to become the key initiatives for the 2020 strategic plan. And from that, steering committee members were identified, selected, volunteered to become the leaders or the champions of those topics. And we're going to go ahead and dive into those topics as we go forward the rest of the day. But the 4 were redesign the capital process to make it a continuous improvement framework. Again, that's something that was heard several times today. Create a cross-industry safe space and pilot predictive quality analytics model. Again, that was mentioned multiple times today. The 3rd one is really getting med device CEOs engaged in quality initiatives. And the 4th one was it was about making quality an attractive entry point into your career. So those are the 4 topics. From that, after that conversation, detailed work streams were developed. And I'll kind of walk you through some of those. So the steering committee developed those, finalized them. And in essence, today what's going to happen is I'm going to introduce the topics. Each of the leads are going to provide a little bit of a pitch or an overview, a little more detail around that. You'll see the detail that's been put together to date around each of those topics. And in the afternoon, the working sessions are to start to dive into how those work streams will be executed on. So before I go into the specifics, any comments or questions about the process? Or Joe, do you want to add anything else around that process, or we're okay? Okay. sorry, was one behind. Okay, so the first topic we had, as I mentioned, was the redesigning the CAPA process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually let Luann talk a little bit about that process, because again, she's passionate about it and she's got a few anecdotes to kind of introduce what that goal is all about.
Okay, thanks a lot. I'm going to draw something on the board here. Do you have a pen? Who's got a pen? Perfect. Thanks a lot. All right. So I have 3 observations, and they're from Medtronic, and I'm sure all of you can relate to them. And I'm going to draw it on a triangle here so that you can all see. First of all, don't tell FDA this, but we have problems at Medtronic, okay? So we have problems. Stuff comes up all day, every day, and you figure out how to take it down. We also have engineers at Medtronic. We probably have 10,000 engineers. And you know, there's something that I've learned about engineers. I'm not an engineer myself, but engineers love to solve problems, okay? They love that all day. I think they create a lot of problems, but they also love to solve problems. And at our company, and many companies, we've figured out, how do we solve problems? What is the 4-letter word that we use to solve problems? I heard someone whispered it. You won't even say it out loud. CAPA. Let me tell you something that I learned, a 3rd observation. Engineers hate CAPAs, okay? So my challenge, my conundrum at the company is, how do I get 10,000 engineers to work to help me solve problems? And the thing that I've figured out is the way I need to do that is to get rid of CAPA, okay? Blow it up, bomb it, change the name, do whatever needs to happen to make that happen, because it's not working. At my company last year, we spent $150 million on CAPAs. That's a lot of money to solve problems. It's probably money well spent to solve problems. However, it's way too much. And so when I presented in the April meeting, I said, let's figure out, how do we fix the CAPA process? So I'm here to ask each of the companies to send a representative to work with me on a program that I'm calling, hashtag to be cool, make CAPA cool. Okay, so I want lots of smart people to join me, lots of visionary people, lots of people who want to change this. This isn't incremental changes. This is transformational changes in the CAPA process. And I know that Cisco is on board with this, that he agrees that it's a piece that we can do together. What's in it for you? What's in it for you? What we will do is, I will take the members of this team to different industries to learn, how do they do continuous improvement. Kirsten said today she would welcome us to Toyota to come and learn, to go there and visit it and see, how do they do it. We'll go visit aviation, we'll go visit aerospace, we'll go visit other industries. So if you're on this team, you will learn those things, and then together we'll come back and figure out, what are the barriers we have in medical device, how is it done in other places, and how can we change medical device. So I would love everyone in this room to be on my team. Make CAPA cool. That's my pitch.
So now the bar has been set with the first pitch. So now we have to see how it gets better. So again, and you'll see with each one of these, there's been work done to define kind of high-level implementation. So again, this is not something that's been just start from scratch. There's been work done by the group to at least get things going. So the second topic we have is to create an industry cross-industry safe space. Then ultimately work, some passion with me is the analytics approach. So Connor, go ahead. You're up and you're on the clock now.
Well, the first thing is thanks, Luann, for setting the bar high and drawing pictures and no, it's not really. So yeah, we had a really, really productive meeting, very interesting meeting in FDA when we met. It was middle of April, and what became patently apparent was we all suffer from the same issues, the same challenges, but ultimately we all have the same aim as an industry, and that's as an ecosystem, be that the regulators, be that the manufacturers, be that the patients, you know, and that's, we want to solve problems, we want to make better devices. But the problem is how we often interact. So we all kind of whisper to each other, yeah, I have that problem too, or yeah, I have that problem too, you know? But because of how we interact, and there's a natural defensiveness, and we're guarded about how we share that information. So the team got to talk, and you know, the aviation industry has done something like this in the past, where they were having problems with airline safety. So how could they really go about, as an industry, fixing those safety issues? To do it, you have to bare your soul, you have to bare your problems, you have to be completely honest, and then as an industry, move the needle so that ultimately we now have safer airplanes to fly home on, or at least I hope so when I get on the airplane this evening. So clearly, as an industry, we would benefit from that. As an ecosystem, as a medical device ecosystem, we will benefit from that. So we were figuring out, right, so what do we do with it? What would be an interesting problem once we have established a framework for a safe space, a medical device industry safe space? And we thought, well, we're always talking about how, you know, data is power, and, you know, information, you know, we're data rich and we're information poor, we're knowledge poor as a result of that. We talked about it this morning with Kristen, and she brought it up that even in the automotive industry, they haven't cracked this one. So how about we start a pilot, make a small incremental improvement in how we are using data to make predictions about product performance, which will ultimately drive improvements in product performance. So what we agreed was we'd take, once we have a safe space established, this framework and structure for that established, we'll take predictive analytics as a problem we have across the industry, and figure out what we can do about it. What are each of our companies thinking about? And then how can we start to leverage what they're doing in other industries and other companies, what they're doing with data to be able to make prediction about performance, and then how can we leverage that back into the medical device space? So that really is what we want to try and do on this one. So it's something very different than what we've done before. I think a safe space environment is a really interesting concept. I think the sooner we crack predictive analytics, the sooner we're going to be producing products that are of the highest quality for our patients. It's going to make the FDA's job easier. It's going to make our job as manufacturers easier. So my pitch is that if you have any data scientists, no, only joking, we know they're as rare as hen's teeth around the industry, but what we do need is people with an open, broad mind and a curiosity to really dig into a problem like predictive analytics, to try and figure out how we can create a structure that we can actually use across industry. So this table.
Thanks, Connor. The third item, which is led by Joe, really focuses on getting CEOs engaged in quality initiatives. So I'll let you go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to have to feed off of your sympathies and your empathy. As a person with a face for radio and a voice for silent movies, you want to be part of the CEO program. Okay? But seriously, when we started this when we started the Case for Quality, one of the first things we talked about was culture. How do we change the culture? And we talked about it for a long time. And we finally said, you know what? We've got the Case for Quality. We've got the quality culture workbook that we're developing. But how do you then make it relevant for all of us to then take back to our C-suite? And having the benefit of working for two very passionate CEOs in the last 10 years of quality, Omar and Joe Almeida, I mean, my job was really easy when it came to driving a quality culture. But I think I was a bit lucky than just good, because they were all about how do you send that message from the top down. So we need to take that And we need to translate that into what does that feel like for other organizations that may be struggling with, how do I approach my CEO? My CEO says all the right things, but it doesn't go down deep enough. Or we don't have recognition programs. We don't have those stories initiatives. So how can we kind of unlock the value, starting with that top-down, bottom-up conversation? The good thing is that this initiative will also dovetail with what Steve's talked about, because having been part of both opportunities, there's a lot of crossover and collaboration. So I can at least say that I know I've got 2 people on my team, because it's career ending if they don't join the team. So Rob and Neil, thanks for volunteering. No, but seriously, it's something that we as an we as a group had always recognized as something that we had to figure out a way to unlock it. So we're planning on doing at least the survey approach, and then look for where those gaps are, and then how can we improve that? And then how do you create that dialogue? We talked about elevator speeches about quality. We talked about the quality 101 and things like that. How do you educate folks? And now is a time for us to be able to do this, because there's so much going on in the quality space, and there's so much going on in the EU MDR and IVDR. You need to create that awareness, because these are no longer just compliance challenges or quality challenges. They're financial investments, and who better to sign off on that than the CEO? So from our perspective, there's a lot of moving parts to this, but we need to at least gauge where we are and then put some things in place to where we want to be, but continue to contribute back to the case for quality, as well as the value of quality.
Joe? And last but not least, we have make quality an attractive first step in your career. And Jackie.
So when I came to quality a few years ago, one of the things that really struck me was that when I looked at the background of who we had working, I was trying to solve the problem of how did we get in the mess we were in. And I started looking at the background of the people that we were employing in quality, and it was history majors and economics majors. And it occurred to me that you become a quality person purely by accident. It's where, there's a job available and you apply for it and you get it, but it could be so much more pointed. And, we scratch our heads constantly getting to what Luann was saying, CAPAs. Nobody knows how to do a really, really good CAPA. And yet we have, thousands of people doing CAPAs. So it seems to me that there's a huge opportunity for us to create a pilot curricula at the college level for people who actually want to go into quality and could find it interesting, rather than defaulting to whoever's looking for a job and just taking people because we have an opening. So that's kind of the background on where this came from. I think there's plenty of content in quality systems and investigations and other things that it could be a very interesting topic, or joint major with perhaps a biology or a science or an engineering major. So that's the background on this one. It's hard to hear who's talking.
Yeah, that was Stephanie just saying those in the room. Beth's going to pinch hit for you.
Great.
Session today. Okay. So again, I think I'm going to go turn it back to you, Stephanie, for kind of setting up the afternoon session. Thank you for our pitches today.
Sure. Thank you. All right. So we have an hour for you to find a group, to meet with a group, and to start digging in a little bit deeper on these proposed work streams. those of you who've been involved with Case for Quality for a long time, we've sometimes done where I force you into a group. We sometimes do where we let you self-select. I'm going to let you self-select today. So pick the topic that's of most interest to you. I would encourage, for those of you that have multiple representatives from the same company, to maybe try out, unless it's going to be a career ender for you, then don't do that. But I know we have several folks from the FDA. I'd love it if the FDA folks could kind of spread out a little bit. It's we're running, we gave me a few minutes extra. So we're gonna break the group up until 2:30, and then we're gonna come back together as a big group and report out. There are easel pads, there are pens. Where are we gonna put people? So quality is cool. Quality as a career option. It's gonna be over here with Beth. Joe is leading the CEO engagement. We'll maybe put you to the back of the room here. Luann is doing Kappa over here. And Connor, maybe we'll have you come up front here, but Connor up here for the safe space. Questions? Cisco.
So just to provide a little bit of extra insight in the, how open we are with this, similar things with Case for Quality, right? It's really an opportunity to rethink what's going to deliver the best impact and value. I mean, the CEO engagement piece, at least yesterday, yesterday we saw some great examples in terms from Toyota about how their CEO previously would model the behavior, right? He would dress up in his jumpsuit and walk the floor all the time and pick up stuff and everything along the way. It's not just about the, the education component, but it's also what other behaviors that they should be figuring out and modeling. With Kappa, it's the, we're in a situation where looking at our customers, if we talk about the customer discussion beforehand, Kappa is intended to be a tool for your engineers. Where did we lose that, and where did we turn it into the customer being the auditor, right? So how do we figure out and reset that and turn it back into maximizing the speed, efficiency? When is the right amount of information to capture around that piece? And you saw the education component come up time and time again, so that's always important. So these are all 4 areas that you see keep resounding over and over again. And then the safe space and the analytics, we also saw that in play. A big portion that didn't get covered today was a lot of their engagement with their suppliers, where it is exactly that. It is all about that safe space. You reward the transparency, you reward the engagement, you reward the problem solving, which now their suppliers are doing amongst themselves without their intervention at all. So there's a lot of opportunity here for us to really rethink what's going to deliver the biggest impact.